After Munich, no one in Israel spoke publicly about revenge, but inside a windowless room beneath Tel Aviv's King Saul Boulevard, a list was written 11 names, each followed by a single word, locate. Those names belonged to the men of Black September, the Palestinian faction that turned the Olympic Village into a killing field. Israel couldn't go to war again, not so soon. So the war went private. It began with false passports, coded telegrams, and one man asked to live a life that wasn't his. A man called Eitan Levine. Or, at least, that's who he was before he became someone else. In December 1972, he boarded a flight from Tel Aviv to Rome under that name. His mission was to blend into the static of post-war Europe. No gun, no backup. Just a false identity so intricate that even its creator doubted it would hold. He carried French import licenses, tax receipts, even a stale correspondence record with a defunct Belgian paper company, the kind of bureaucratic clutter that gives lies credibility. His cover legend, a low-level trader sourcing industrial adhesives from Denmark to Italy. But beneath the paperwork, two truths already threatened to surface. First, the company that supposedly employed him had quietly dissolved 3 months earlier. Second, the man who built his legend, a forger named Lev Ari, had vanished from Europe under the assumption he'd been exposed. Eitan didn't know either fact, and that ignorance was both his armor and his first fracture line. To Mossad, he was asset G17. To Europe, he was Jean-Luc Moreau, a citizen who no longer existed in any real archive. In the months to come, he would meet enemies who didn't know his face and allies who might. But at that moment, sitting in the second row of an Alitalia flight, watching Rome rise through the fog, he wasn't deceiving the world. He was deceiving himself. Brussels was gray, bureaucratic, and bore perfect camouflage. Eitan rented a 2-room flat near Rue de la Loi, neighboring law clerks and railway accountants. He mailed himself letters from non-existent suppliers, left staged hotel receipts, and subscribed to trade newsletters he never read. Every scrap of paper mattered. Every errand built a narrative of normalcy. Mossad didn't just create identities. They performed them. Every lie needed texture, the banal rhythm of truth. He learned to complain about customs fees, to gesture like a Frenchman when irritated. He made himself mundane and succeeded too well. Neighbors began greeting him by name, offering dinner invitations. What should have felt reassuring only tightened the trap. Routine builds recognition, and recognition builds risk. One evening, his landlady, Madame Renard, handed him a letter. From your company, she smiled. The envelope bore the letterhead of Compagnie Papetière du Nord, which by then no longer existed. Inside were unintelligible French business terms, a test message from headquarters to confirm his local postal reliability. But if anyone checked the sender, they'd find only an empty warehouse and tax archives listing a company in liquidation. Eitan smiled, thanked her, and burned the envelope that night, realizing this was already a life that could collapse from something as harmless as curiosity. Later that week, another complication arrived: Leah Morgan, a Danish art dealer renting a gallery space on the same block. Casual, friendly, fluent in French but with a northern lilt, she introduced herself at the cafe downstairs, asked if he imported materials useful for framing. Too natural, too timely. He didn't know whether she'd been placed there by chance or someone else. Eitan, coincidence is a luxury we don't believe in, but he played along. Every good cover required supporting characters, willing or unaware. Leah became one unknowingly, perhaps. She invited him to exhibitions. He politely attended, ordering mineral water, pretending interest in landscapes while mentally noting exits and faces. Yet something about the interaction unsettled him. She didn't just converse, she observed. Her questions brushed too close to his supposed trade. Prices, suppliers, routes through Hamburg, each one wrapped in casual curiosity. He deflected with charm, invented small inconsistencies, then regretted them instantly. Lies breed imbalance. Every conversation created a thread that didn't exist in his briefings. That night, he reviewed his own cover file by candlelight, not out of security protocol, but fear of forgetting the script. He whispered his legend to himself like a prayer. Jean-Luc Moreau, born Lyon, 1938. Company representative, regional supplier. No military service, no political history, no attachments. And yet, attachments were forming the one thing his training warned him against. The deeper he sank into the persona, the thinner Eitan became. Mossad operatives often said, "You don't wear a legend, it wears you." The first operational contact came through coded newspaper ads. Phrases embedded within the classified listings of Le Soir, referring to shipping delays and replacement invoices. Each indicated a meeting, a dead drop, or surveillance target. Eitan decoded one package from Rome, ready for collection. The package was a dossier, photographs of suspected Black September couriers transiting Western Europe. Among them, a man frequently seen with French journalist Mahmoud Hamshari. Eitan's task was simple on paper: confirm Hamshari's location, report pattern of movement, avoid direct approach. In reality, his map was blank. Mossad's Brussels cell was small, isolated by design. He didn't know other operatives by face or name. If compromised, he couldn't betray anyone he couldn't identify. Still, danger accumulated invisibly. Belgian customs quietly cross-checked Jean-Luc Moreau's license files and found inconsistencies between signatures, one written in Parisian cursive, another in Tel Aviv-style French. The note sat unacted in a desk drawer at the Ministry of Commerce, labeled verification pending. A bureaucrat's oversight, but one that could birth an investigation. And somewhere across the street, Leah's gallery light stayed on late, her silhouette pacing the floor. Once, she paused by her window, gaze lingering at his. A smile, part curiosity, part recognition. Or maybe pity. Every perfect disguise carries a flaw. Sometimes you notice it when it's already too late to fix. That was the first week of the hunt. Only one question now shadowed Eitan's every waking moment. Who, if anyone, was watching him? By March 1973, the Jean-Luc Moreau legend had survived 3 months without exposure. Too long. In Mossad's lexicon, static cover was suspicion delayed. Eitan Levin believed every detail of his false life had purpose. The burned letters, the polite charm, the routine visits to the customs office. He thought each small lie kept him invisible. He was wrong. That month, Brussels police received an anonymous envelope marked false papers, possible espionage. Inside were photocopies of Jean-Luc Moreau's import licenses, the same papers Mossad had crafted in Tel Aviv. But there was one addition, a handwritten note in Danish. The informant knew about him. Worse, the handwriting matched someone's he recognized, Leah Morgan. Eitan noticed her handwriting weeks earlier on a thank you card she'd slipped under his door after a gallery opening. The M curved like a ribbon. Identical here. Still, Mossad instructs, never trust reaction. Verify through observation. So he watched her in the mirror of the cafe in the reflection of shop windows. Each time, she appeared ordinary. No cues of surveillance tradecraft, no mirror checks, no pattern halts, no tail behavior. Eitan, if she's feeding me to someone, she's better than I am. Doubt erodes discipline faster than exposure. And doubt, once seeded, grows roots in every silence. To contain possible compromise, Eitan sent an encoded message up the chain through a courier in Antwerp, requesting contact realignment authority economic irregularities. It meant his cover had been touched. Someone was pushing. Headquarters responded with clean efficiency. Observe only. Do not engage. Prepare abort discretion if cover integrity declines. Abort discretion, a sterile term that really meant burn the identity, vanish, and accept exile. He rehearsed it as calmly as recalling an address, but the question hovered. What if the lie had spread too far to kill cleanly? A week later, he received orders to shadow his target's courier in Paris, a man identified as Mahmoud Hamshari's associate. He was to arrive under his business pretext, attend 2 trade fairs, one real, one invented. At Brussels airport, he used the same passport stamped too cleanly. Immigration officers raised an eyebrow but waved him through. In the old black and white hall of Orly, his contact passed him a hotel key and a manila envelope. Inside, photographs of Hamshari's Paris apartment, his building's floor plan, and a technical request install a listening device beneath the telephone. The mission wasn't assassination yet. Listening came first, understanding second, confirmation third. Killing was only authorized when understanding failed. Eitan checked in as Moreau, room 216, 2 blocks from the target. Everything was textbook except for one observation. The contact who delivered his file didn't use the passphrase. That phrase, "Does the adhesive dry too fast?" existed to validate safe approach. Instead, the courier said, "Your shipment may delay in transit." Close enough to pass to an untrained ear, but not correct. Eitan allowed the exchange to continue anyway. That was his first deviation from protocol. Tiny, almost invisible. But every spy knows corruption begins not with betrayal, but with grace. Later that night, on a discreet line, Eitan reported partial progress. His handler, codenamed Rachel 7, pressed, had contact phrasing been accurate? He hesitated, then lied. Yes, perfect. That lie cost nothing in the moment. But it masked the first fracture, the quiet decision to protect his own judgment over institutional certainty. Paris blurred days into nights. Eitan staged maintenance visits in the target's building, disguised as a telecom contractor with patched uniform credentials. A light touch of wire, a faint scratch, a hidden microphone under the telephone's cradle. When Hamshari answered calls, every word ran through tiny relays of deception across local switchboards to a recording site 10 blocks away. Eitan sat in a listening van for hours, translating muffled fragments of conversations he scarcely understood. For weeks, nothing but static, and yet something in the noise changed him. You can't eavesdrop that long on strangers without losing a piece of yourself. One night, he heard Hamshari mention a letter already delivered. It was only a phrase, but Eitan's blood chilled. His own compromised envelope in Brussels, had it been part of the same chain? Was Leah working with them, or someone else watching both sides? He couldn't be sure. But paranoia works both ways. The next morning, he found the observation van's gas cap loosened. A meaningless accident, perhaps, yet every operative sees pattern where chaos lives. The operation chief for Western Europe, known only as Avner, summoned him to a safe flat in Montreuil. The air smelled of damp, wallpaper, and silence. "Avner, you built a noise trail, Eitan. Customs flagged false paperwork. Someone dropped your name. You still think you're invisible?" "Eitan, it'll pass. I can fix it." "Avner, fix isn't our word is abort." For a long moment, Eitan stared at the cracked plaster behind Avner's head. The script demanded obedience, the legend be terminated before exposure exposes many. But he imagined Leah's voice, her unguarded laughter, the way she called him Jean. He realized he no longer knew whose lie she was part of or which identity she saw. "Eitan, if we abort now, everything we've built vanishes." "I vanish. There's no Moreau, no Lavin, just nothing." Mossad teaches that identity is disposable. But disposal is easy only in theory. In the field, it means erasing the self you've begun to believe. Avner left the decision open. 48 hours, he said. If your line reemerges on French paper again, disappear. Eitan returned to his hotel, body motionless, but mind in revolt. The deception wasn't just cover now, it had gravity. It pulled. He drafted a message to headquarters confirming mission continuity, then tore it apart. That night, he dreamed in 2 languages, half of him remembering Hebrew phrases, half murmuring French in sleep. When he woke, he wasn't sure which language his thoughts used first. For 50 years, the story told inside Mossad training halls was simple. Elite agents tracked Black September through masterful deception. But records unsealed decades later revealed something else. The operations that followed Paris, Rome, Athens were guided by intelligence from Jean-Luc Moreau, considered one of the most reliable field covers. But Eitan Levin's reports never actually reached Tel Aviv. Every dispatch he encoded, every dead drop he placed, was being intercepted by a second channel, an unauthorized internal courier network built by a senior communications officer for her own operations. The deception worked, yes, but those in charge of it didn't even know whose deception succeeded. In other words, Eitan wasn't serving Mossad alone. His messages, after passing through the wrong relay, were reassembled and reused by parallel groups feeding selective information to foreign intelligence. The Paris operation's success, if one could call it that, rested on a misrouted lie. Back in that Montreuil apartment, neither Avner nor Eitan knew any of this. They believed the signals were secure, their risks internal. Yet every code word, every false invoice, was already being read elsewhere by eyes they'd never imagined. As dawn broke over the Seine, Eitan gazed at his reflection in the hotel mirror. The man staring back carried 2 names, 2 masters, and no certain truth. He rehearsed his abort line again, burn the legend, vanish, accept exile. Then he laughed quietly. If each signal he'd sent had gone astray, what did abort even mean anymore? In the business of lies, even endings can be counterfeit. And before this mission is done, Eitan Lavin will have to decide which version of deception he still believes. Paris in late spring should have felt alive, cafes reopening, riverboats slicing the Seine. But for Jean-Luc Moreau, it was an echo chamber. By April 1973, the operation that was supposed to end in clarity felt more like a fog he'd created. He didn't know it yet, but every action he took now would feed on a single error, an assumption so ordinary he mistook it for safety. Eitan began his day earlier than usual, nerves dissolving caffeine faster than it could calm him. The plan was mechanical. Approach the target's building, confirm device function, relay signal to the new handler frequency. He'd repeated those steps in his notebook for 2 weeks. But the operation started wrong before it began. The secure transmitter he hid beneath the hotel mattress suddenly blinked in a new pattern. 3 short, 1 long. That frequency belonged not to Rachel 7, but to Avner. Someone at headquarters had reassigned the communication line without explanation. A trivial procedural change or a silent reprimand. Spies don't fear orders, they fear silence that replaces them. Eitan considered calling in, but indecision is invisible on bureaucratic paper. Hesitation never forgiven in fieldwork. So he told himself what every operative tells himself in the absence of certainty: keep moving. He didn't know that the frequency correction was itself a clerical error, a well-meaning technician updating older encryption keys. But to him, it tasted like warning. The new order slip read, "Final confirmation window target 48 hours. Final." That word pulsed as if in bold print. That night, while preparing the relay box in his rental flat, he noticed the reflection of someone sitting at the cafe. Opposite, habitually reading the evening paper, never finishing a drink. Always the same man, same table. At first, Eitan assumed he was just a local, the kind of background figure the paranoid invent. Until the lights went out briefly in the cafe, a power flicker, and the man's eyes shifted directly toward Eitan's window at the exact second the circuit dimmed. Pure coincidence, perhaps, but in field arithmetic, coincidence equals exposure. He almost initiated abortive protocol right then, fingers hovering over the burner phone to trigger shadow exit. Then, a simpler fear overrode training. If headquarters received his abort code, they'd know he'd doubted discipline, and doubt spreads like contagion. He waited, pulse syncing with the ticking wall clock. 30 minutes passed. The man didn't move. When he finally stood, paid, and left, Eitan exhaled. A false start of fear, another ghost conjured by exhaustion. Or so he told himself. Every operative prays for one clean moment of certainty. Eitan had just lost his last. The next morning, RFI radio played softly in the hotel lobby. Between traffic reports, the announcer mentioned an ongoing police initiative checking work documents in foreign residential districts. Routine administrative program. Innocuous, except it included the street of his apartment building. That one sentence hollowed him out. Bureaucracy moves slow, but revenge moves slower. And he remembered the verification pending note in Belgium. If authorities now cross-checked identities region-wide, Jean-Luc Moreau would surface like a corpse too long submerged. He retreated to his room, hands shaking as he packed, then unpacked. The abort plan called for immediate withdrawal south to Marseille under fresh papers. He hesitated at the doorway. If he left now, Hamshari's network might vanish into shadow again. If he stayed, he risked burning years of penetration work. The rules were clear: protect the network, not the self, and yet he was the network. He dialed the emergency extraction code, began keying in the digits. On the final number, he froze. Something in him, pride, fear, identity blur, made him hang up halfway. The line stayed open, silent, unacknowledged. A near abort. Half confession, half defiance. In espionage, half measures kill faster than betrayal. But sometimes they keep you breathing long enough to regret it. He poured himself a drink, told the mirror it was still under control. The reflection smirked back, uncertain which name to answer to. By afternoon, a courier arrived at the front desk uniformed, polite, clipboard in hand. "Package for Monsieur Moreau," he said. Eitan signed the slip automatically. The parcel bore a Danish shipping label. He knew that handwriting. Leah Morgan. Inside, a note wrapped around a rolled photograph, the two of them at her gallery months earlier, smiling, unaware. Her message read simply, "For your exhibition." No codes, no threats, just familiarity. And beneath the paper, a small envelope marked "For Liaison Rome." He interpreted it instantly: Liaison, a relay officer, Rome, Shock Parallel Cell. She was still part of the machinery. She was warning him. He burned the content unread, convincing himself it was safer unconfirmed, but he misunderstood. The envelope had been cleared by her to deliver contact confirmation, proof that she'd never betrayed him. She'd been under surveillance herself and wanted to assure his safety. His destruction of the evidence completed the misunderstanding. Mossad HQ, failing to receive that confirmation, reclassified Jean-Luc Moreau as potentially compromised asset. Orders for recall were drafted within hours, but Eitan, now isolated, never received them. That night, something shifted. Police vans that had patrolled his street all week suddenly vanished. The tension dissolved. Air itself felt lighter. Eitan interpreted it as clearance. The check operation concluded, his papers validated among thousands. He stepped outside for the first time in days. Rain had cleansed the pavement. Somewhere down the boulevard, street musicians were playing a distant waltz. For the first time, he exhaled without calculation. Every deceiver craves vindication, however false. Even fear grows tired of itself. He walked to the Riverside Cafe where he'd first met Leah, the same table, same glass lamps. The seat across from him was empty, but the waiter placed a note beneath his saucer. Telephone confirmed. Signal green. Relief. Finally. The device he'd planted weeks earlier still functioned. It meant, operationally, his mission could proceed. Maybe his misgivings had been paranoia after all. He dialed into the relay frequency and reported success. A calm, female voice answered. Not Rachel Sevens, not Avner's, but new, polite, efficient. Copy Jean-Luc, transmit confirmation word. He hesitated. No one had briefed him about new voices. But the word came anyway, reflexively. Adhesive. Received, she replied. Continue monitoring. Good work. Eitan allowed himself a smile. A life submerged entirely in deception offers rare oxygen, and this felt like breathing again. He ordered another coffee, savoring the illusion of normalcy. Somewhere else in Paris, the same line connected to a different receiver. The voice that answered him hadn't come from Mossad channels at all, but from the shadow network siphoning transmissions, the one he didn't know existed. His operational success was being filed not in Tel Aviv, but in a London safe house run by another service entirely. That night, in his hotel, the mirror no longer recognized him. The eyes looked similar, but the stance, the breathing pattern, the stray word of French he muttered unconsciously in sleep. He dreamed of Leah standing beside him, whispering his name, but which version? Eitan. Jean. Sometimes both, overlapping like radio waves. He woke to find his operational radio blinking erratically, 3 shorts, 1 long again. The same pattern from before. He assumed an incoming confirmation, so he pressed transmit without listening first. Stand by, verification pending. Who are you transmitting for? That question stopped his breath. He answered instinctively, for coordination Tel Aviv. Silence, then static. No reply. He replayed the tape. The accent was British. The realization spread slow like cold water filling lungs. He had just spoken, openly, to a foreign intercept post. Eitan reached for the abort pouch at last. Inside, benzodine tablets, spare bills, 2 passports. He could still run. He stared at the name, Eitan Lavin, embossed faintly beneath the photolaminate feint, almost erased from reuse. The choice hung tangible: burn the lie, reclaim the ghost of self, or cling to the only identity still functioning. He placed the tablet back. No sound but city breath beyond the curtain. Hesitation once more. Aborted escape, aborted truth. The longest deception is not against the enemy, but against the self that once demanded honesty. He looked out into the street. Nothing moved except headlights sliding across wet stone. For now, quiet. A false calm. He whispered to no one in particular. If they believe I'm still Jean, maybe that's enough. The mission was alive again, but for all the wrong reasons. And though he couldn't feel it yet, every new breath depended on one lie no longer controlled by him. Here's the immediate fallout and consequence phase. The aftermath of deception turning inward, where consequences ripple before the mission is even called over. The tone remains clinical, quiet, and disillusioned, as a proper hidden ops closing arc demands. The moment Jean-Luc Moreau confirmed signal green, Mossad's relay center in Paris went dark for 12 hours. At least on paper it did. The message had been rerouted through a parallel encryption node, same cipher, mirrored header, wrong destination. By the time headquarters realized missing traffic in their logs, the Paris antenna had already been relocated under foreign control. Which meant every recording, every voice that Eitan thought he was transmitting safely to Tel Aviv now existed in another archive. His words, his doubts, even the hesitation in his silence. For the agency, this wasn't immediate failure. Nothing exploded, no bodies on the street. It was worse, a contamination of intelligence streams so subtle that no one could tell which fragment still told truth. The hardest deception to detect is the one that produces believable information. Inside Mossad's European division, analysts began noticing pattern conflicts, duplicate reports on the same subject. Identical phrasing from separate agents. That echo pointed back to him, to Jean-Luc Moreau. Protocols demanded recall and interrogation, but recall orders couldn't find him because his transmitter, now hijacked, returned confirmation receipts on forged schedule. He reporting to no one and everyone. Eitan himself didn't feel collapse at first. The street still felt normal, the phone still hummed when lifted, and messages still arrived when expected. Only when Leah's name surfaced again did the facade finally fracture. A message from Liaison Rome requested his attendance for debrief. The courier brought an envelope smelling faintly of her perfume, the handwriting identical but less confident, as if written with haste. The instructions inside weren't coded properly, phrases almost right but context wrong. A duplicate key sent by someone guessing what authenticity should sound like. He didn't know she'd already vanished 2 days earlier, questioned under a British liaison program as a civilian interlocutor. Cooperation, they called it. Protection, perhaps. For him, it meant the only person who still knew his real face was gone. That night, he walked to the Seine, unsure whether he still belonged to a mission or a story already erased. Across the water, police lights flashed routine patrol, maybe, or not. He folded the recall envelope once, slipped it into the river, watched until the ink dissolved. In the months that followed, Mossad shut down 6 European safe houses without public explanation. Technicians scrubbed codebooks, switched courier channels, and issued silent reinstatements for retired officers. To outside observers, Wrath of God remained operational brilliance, a precise series of retaliations. Inside, it was crisis management disguised as momentum. The intercepted transmissions didn't vanish. They simply changed hands from British intermediaries to NATO analysts curious about Israel's unilateral reach in Europe. For the first time, Western intelligence saw Mossad's infrastructure in miniature: patterns, procedures, voices. Deception had revealed not just the enemy but the deceivers themselves. Every secret bought with deception spends twice: once against the enemy, once against its originator. Years later, audit reports showed the identity breach may have indirectly guided European security reforms that restricted Israel's covert freedom on the continent. What began as pursuit after Munich ended as a quiet constraint on all future operations abroad. And yet, officially, everything succeeded. targets were neutralized. Hunted men fell one by one. Files closed neatly. But the shadow costs rarely appear in statistics. They unfold in isolation cells, faded code names, missing pension credits, agents who never returned home because home no longer recognized them. In late 1975, a French immigration office processed a naturalization form filed under the name Jean Moreau E. The application bore authentic stamps, complete fingerprints, and a residence record citing Brussels, Lyon, Copenhagen. No such citizen existed, yet the file remained in limbo, neither approved nor refused, just archived in bureaucratic purgatory. Analysts later suspected it was him attempting rebirth through paper instead of extraction, an offer for a new life not from Mossad, but from nowhere. Some operatives choose death for control. Others choose disappearance for mercy. Back in Tel Aviv, the Internal Affairs Division published a terse 5-line memo, G-17, presumed unavailable for redeployment. Legend remains unburnable due to trace risk. File sealed indefinitely. No closure, no official dishonor either. Just a quiet erasure, a bureaucratic kindness to a man stuck between faith and forgery. For Eitan Levin, the deeper punishment was numbness. The hunt turned into days spent cataloging lies until they became indistinguishable from memories. When he walked past mirrors, he sometimes greeted himself politely, as strangers do. From a distance, Mossad never confirmed whether he survived, but some internal training modules still quote his case when teaching deception protocols. Legend longevity becomes liability after cumulative narrative confidence exceeds operational feedback, which, translated, meant never believe your own lie for too long. A lesson he'd already lived. The Munich Avengers were never supposed to be remembered by name. Their work fed myth more than memory. But every legend has calculus lies measured in distance, silence, and faces forgotten too completely. The mission achieved headlines history would later call justice. Yet beneath it ran an invisible casualty list trust, identity, and the illusion that deception can ever be perfectly aimed. For agencies built on secrecy, that paradox endures. Lies are tools until they start choosing their users. In the world of hidden operations, victory rarely sounds like triumph. It sounds exactly like this quiet files closing, names fading, and no one certain who was deceived last.